It is 9:10. We welcome to the Steve Cochran Show in studio Ed Szofer, Ed CEO of SenecaGlobal. Let's start there. What is SenecaGlobal?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you.
SenecaGlobal is a basic outsourced product development firm. We're a tech company. We essentially help companies build and create software for all the various uses that are out there.
Well, Ed, you're a handsome devil, but I assume you're about my age, and guys our age generally don't have full careers in tech because computers, when we were coming up, were giant room-sized things.
Exactly.
That you would shove paper cards into. But you've been in this your whole life, huh?
Yes, sir. I graduated here locally at Loyola University, started my career, God forbid, I'm going to say this on public or on radio, at 1981, started my career with a company called Arthur Andersen. Today's Accenture.
One of the big eight.
The big eight, correct. Yeah. So, that was a pretty big thing, and that's where I learned my tech skills. But back then, as you said, the computers filled rooms, and cards were used, and what was on a floor about the size of this studio could power, a wristwatch today, literally.
I'm sure there's
it has gone a long way in the last some decades, for sure.
Big demand for tech talent in Chicago, I'm sure.
It's unbelievable. One of the reasons we are a company that's been successful is, a lot of issues have occurred. Back in 2000, I was president of a company called Whitman Hart here locally, and we had a company that we had acquired, and this is when the dot-com situation occurred. Remember in 2000, all the hype about the digital economy and all this great stuff. Back then, college graduates with a degree in computer science were, demanding ridiculous salaries, and they would job jump like crazy. And I'm seeing the exact same thing again today, 17 years later.
Well, you got 1871 here.
Yep.
You have the nerdery here on a smaller scale, but there's tons of tech development going on in all sectors. You got Google and Facebook going over. In a district that previously was just empty lots.
Right.
So the redevelopment, the development that's going on is amazing. Where are all the jobs going to come from? I mean, the jobs are going to come from there. Where are the people for the jobs?
That's the fundamental question. That's the $64,000 question, Steve. In fact, one of the reasons that companies are struggling today, and there's a lot of news around the H-1B visas and all that kind of good stuff, but there's just a fundamental shortage. If you think about every device that exists, not just your Apple iPhone or Samsung device, but the computers that exist in your refrigerator, your automobile, the clocks, it's all code. Somebody's got to write that stuff. And unfortunately, back to 2000, once the kids who were now entering college in the mid-2000s or early 2000s, none of them got into tech, or not enough. So you see lately in these past couple of years the emphasis on STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, and math, to get the United States back in a groove to train more qualified technicians, scientists, mathematicians.
Right, because if you can't bring in immigrants because of politics to do the jobs, you've got to grow the jobs here, and there's a time problem in getting that done.
Absolutely. There's not enough proficiency in the amount of time that's required, and we all know how fast upgrades occur on your iPhone. Think about everything that has a piece of software associated with it. There's companies struggling or, in high competition for good talent to get their product to market, whether it's a device like a cell phone or something, piece of software you're using here in your computer studio every day. Somebody wrote all this stuff you guys are using, and that has to constantly be upgraded, and new ideas come up.
Can you teach someone to love code writing, or do you have to be a particular brain?
Well, I have 3 kids who none of them went into it, and they're all adults, and they work in various jobs. So I think the answer is, anybody can learn it, but just like maybe we were kids, I wasn't great with math. I didn't care for algebra, but I wanted a job.
Code writing, ones and zeros, it limited you?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. And not to mention it got pretty boring. I like more the business side of it, taking an idea and creating, an application that makes it work. But generally, either you want to do it or don't. And a lot of kids today, I would argue, having adult children myself, don't want to sit at a desk hammering code. Now, some do.
So many kids are obviously millennials. Good. Twitter, Snapchat, they know all of this. The joke is if you want something fixed, you give your phone or your iPad, your Mac to someone younger. How does a
7-year-old?
How about, how do the kids in college make themselves stand out?
Well, you got to learn. You got to be creative. I mean, what the user uses on Twitter or Snapchat and all that stuff, that's just using the application, writing behind it. Yeah. People often think, when you move a cursor and move your phone, there's code behind that. Somebody's writing something to make that interpretation to the machine. So that's not necessarily exciting things to do. Now, there's creativity involved. Sometimes you're coming up with new ideas for new applications. Somebody came up with Facebook, obviously, Zuckerberg. You had the Twitters of the world. Great. People love working on this stuff, but there's a lot of mundane things that need to be done in the old manufacturing company down the street that still needs systems to deal with supply chain, to deal with, logistics or what have you.
We used to talk about 5-year plans, 10-year plans. I don't think you can plan more than 6 months in advance now.
In a business, for certainly not. But people have to make commitments in larger organizations to what their vision is, because it takes time to build software.
Budgets, things like that.
Budgets, and what the competitive market landscape is looking like. Yeah. There's a lot of that, right?
So how do you marry all of that? Does it start younger? Do we have to figure out how to make sure the high school curriculum?
I think there's a lot of that going on. I mean, I'm not an expert in the education space, but clearly, giving kids, many schools today are using no books, right? They're using iPads as the basic thing, and
that's why the handwriting's so good,
right? Whatever the technology, but introducing them early, and you're right, they all have a proficiency. They're not afraid of these technologies, not to use them, but to actually find the innovative thinking to go behind and say, how does that work? When I was a kid, I worked on cars. I wanted to know how a carburetor worked. I wanted to know how you made an engine work. So, I dug in. So similarly with computers, I think the young generation needs to hopefully have an inner interest to do that.
Well, if we have, we have tons of parents and grandparents listening and kids that are home for the summer, and maybe they're going into their junior year and they want to figure out what they're going to do in college.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of careers you can send them into with certainty to go, oh, yeah, people are going to want to hire you 4 years down the road.
Right.
But there is in technology. So where would you tell them to focus?
Well, I would tell them to focus, clearly, get a taste for it. Take any computer class you can, introductory stuff. There's a lot of stuff you can do online that allows you to just play with it for free. And there's several resources out there available to you. So, and some people, I would urge young kids and their parents, and I'm a recent grandparent, to say, hey, you know what, look at this, get into this, because there is a reality check that not everybody can be a star on American Idol or The Voice. You really got to look at earning a living at some point. And again, having 3 kids that I put through college myself who are now in the working world, it's looking back. Now, you can't train a person and make them become an engineer, if you will, but you at least should consider it, I would argue.
Yeah, put it in the mix. Recent grandparents, my ears perk up. Mine's 18 months old. How about you?
2.5 weeks. Grandfather of twins, a boy and a girl. My daughter did a great job, so we're excited about that.
God bless you.
Hi, Tennyson. Hi, Lakeland. That's a shout out to my kids.
Cool names.
Yeah, my wife's maiden name Tennyson.
That's
and
awesome.
Lakeland.
Where do you get to the 18-month stage? I mean, I'm not saying your grandkids will compete with mine because she's clearly exceptional, but
no doubt.
But it's nothing but fun. It's amazing.
Everybody says that, so this is our first, so we're really excited about it.
And you think forward in this field, it's impossible to imagine what your grand-twins or my granddaughter will have in front of them in 18 years.
Well, again, in my own 30-year career, I could see what's happened. I can only imagine. I'm kind of a Star Trek geek. I see all the futuristic stuff you see in sci-fi.
Yeah.
I think that stuff's going to be passé by the time these kids get to that age.
Does Abigail play on an iPad or an iPhone yet?
Yeah.
Okay,
really?
Yeah,
she swipes. Yeah, she swipes.
Yeah, and she's 18 months. My goddaughter did that at 2 or 2.5, I think, at the time, and just went over. And her mother never taught her this. Turned on the phone, swiped, found the picture of the app that she likes, and basically started it.
Not having played with it, I'm sure I'll start seeing this soon. But the educational tools at such a young age are enticing. You think about not only the software programming, that's all software, right? But the creative minds that came up with working with education people who understand youngsters and how they engage and really lead them to stuff is probably amazing. So it's all part of the ecosystem.
So there's other guys out there who are running around this morning. They're hearing us talk about this, or maybe they're picking up the podcast anywhere in the country.
Right.
And for a company like yours, or a company that has guys our age who maybe don't know tech, but they know they've got to hire tech, what do you do for them? What do you tell them?
Well, I mean, I'm in that business to help them figure that out. We have U.S.-based people, and we do a lot of heavy lifting for companies who just can't find the engineering skills and talent to write this software, so we augment teams. We have very skilled people offshore that work with us, and my U.S. folks that allow companies here in the U.S., a lot of tech companies, to go to market faster. What's happening downtown here in the West Loop, Groupon and Salesforce and Google, they're all switching people around. They're all kind of, trying to create that talent or grab that talent, and that creates a difficult situation.
But that's a limited pool, right?
It's a limited pool.
Forever.
It's finite, and the best talent. And what happens? It's supply and demand, right? It's again what I said back in 2000. Salaries are going up, attrition levels are going up. So you get something going, people start getting stolen away from you because something's cooler down the street. And this is a big issue for companies that don't locate themselves here in the city, because most of the young people who are tech people, who are good engineers, if they're not on the red line or the blue line or can ride their bike, they're not interested. They don't own cars. They're not going to the burbs. And that's a big concern for this. Concern for companies who are headquartered out there. Not necessarily high-tech companies, but who need tech talent.
Yeah.
Does a kid need a 4-year education to get a great tech career, or would they serve themselves better to get in the business as fast as possible?
That's a great question, Steve. My opinion would be, I think if a company would look at a person's skill set and they have the aptitude and they can demonstrate that they are self-taught or have learned, yeah, they'll learn. And I would argue that you could bring them into an organization and they'd learn from the people around them. Does that hurt them in management in the future? Well, that's depending on the company's philosophy on corporate hierarchy or whatever. But I think if you can do it, they don't care.
I know you do a lot of work out of India. How much of our pool of talent's coming from there?
It's still a vast majority of people that come here or are working there just because India's been doing it for nearly 3 decades now. But Eastern Europe, South America are all sources of what they're doing for their populations is have invested heavily, especially in India, in terms of STEM, right? And what's happening there, they've had many schools and government funding to attract U.S. businesses to do all that. So they've built, and India's got 1.3 billion people. So this emerging middle class is happening where people who can get a tech degree and can contribute in the tech economy now have an opportunity to earn a great living. Modi and Trump were together not long ago, Prime Minister of India, and tech is a big part of this, and economy of India is growing the fastest in the world for a reason, and tech is a big part of that.
And I would assume once you have those tech skills, America is where you want to go because you can actually get paid here.
Yeah, that's true, but actually the salaries are also rising in countries like India, everywhere else, but it's still a matter of the labor arbitrage still does exist, which is favorable to U.S. companies if they're leveraging that talent. Where it gets a little muddy is when people from these countries, whether it's India or Belarus or what have you, come to the U.S. under H-1Bs, and there's a lot of, that's where you see a lot of the political storm around H-1Bs, the leverage, or the, I wouldn't say fraud, but there's some of that, I imagine. But more importantly, there's a lot of abuse of it.
There's pay for citizenship stuff that goes on.
There's all of that stuff.
It's ridiculous.
But the H-1Bs haven't changed. It's still a $60,000 ceiling. That was 20 years ago. That salary is anybody today. Today the salaries like when the Googles of the world and the large companies, they bring over talent when they need them, Microsoft, et cetera, they're paying a great wage, just like they would here. Where a lot of companies are trying to get underneath that, and there's brokerage firms that bring talent. Maybe it's not even that good. Anyway, it is what it is.
Who's our biggest competition aside from India?
Well, I wouldn't say it's competition. I think it's there to augment what we're doing here in the United States. The innovation still happens here. People do want to come here. They want our people in India. We don't do the H-1B thing at all. We have people working for companies here, but are always in India.
But you mean competition for bodies?
Yeah.
Competition for bodies?
Bodies.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the grip.
Competition for bodies and to fill the jobs. Like, is China taking?
Oh yes, yeah. China's trying to, but they still have a bigger language barrier. In India, most people speak English because it was, it's the world's largest democracy when you think about it. So when the Brits had it, a lot of kids spoke English. I mean, they have accents, of course, but there's much better communication skills, and the sheer size of the market in terms of tech talent is exponentially larger than any South American or Eastern European country.
You optimistic about it?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
We're going to get it figured out.
Well, I think we're in good shape. It's just a matter of making sure that the U.S. does the right thing. H-1Bs are a great program. It has to be monitored and managed correctly, and it's got a little bit, old.
Who is the Ed Szofer of lobbyists who's working on these politicians to realize what they're blocking?
Yeah, it's certainly not me, but it's probably I'd be speculating, so I couldn't really tell you.
But is there somebody in the House or the Senate that jumps out that gets it?
Offhand, I don't know. I'm not that political, to be honest with you, so I couldn't tell you if there's somebody like that out there. But I think there's a political thing about people taking jobs. The jobs generally, if the H-1B is coming over here to do a job or what we do, it doesn't take away American jobs. It actually, I would argue, creates them because it gets things to market faster, allows people to spend more money on things locally like sales and marketing and development, innovation rather, things of that nature. So, but I don't have on the what's going on in Washington on Capitol Hill. I'm not, any expert to.
It's not ruining your business. So.
Oh, not at all. In fact, it's helping our business. The more they clamp down on H-1Bs, it helps me because I don't do that. We simply have people there with my people here who are working, and they have now a factory they can use, just like companies have been doing for years.
But you'd like to fix the system for everybody because you're a decent human being.
Well, I'm totally a decent human being. I'm a born and bred Chicagoan, But the fact is, I think it's got to be done right. Everybody should be on an equal playing field, and some days that doesn't exist.
You're great. I hope we can use you again.
Pleasure to meet you all. Thanks for having me.
And I'm sorry you were so nervous coming on. He acts like this is no big deal being on the Cochran show.
Exactly.
But if people are interested in what you're doing, send them to your website, or what do they do?
Yeah, SenecaGlobal.com. Easy place to see. We're a cool company. We'd love to talk to you. Thank you for having us.
Congratulations on the twins.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, best
Thank
to
you.
your family.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, best
Thank
to
you.
your family.
Thank you very much, sir.